Hello, everyone. This is Isabel Tierney, and I am the creator and the founder of the Feel Good Life methodology. And I am really happy to be here today because we are going to be talking about our inner critic. And so as you come into the space, good morning, Mary Schizler. It's so good to see you. Say hello as you come into the space, whether you are live or replay. And let me know what is having you say yes to this Facebook Live. Right? In this Facebook Live, good morning, J. Marie, we are going to be talking about who is the inner critic? What's its reason for existence? And how do we transform it? Because I think it's pretty obvious to all of us. Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, Susie. Oh, I love seeing you guys. So let me know as we begin, as we wait for people to come into the space, like, what is it about this topic, the topic of the inner critic, that makes you say, I'm going to take time out of my day to listen to this? Your inner critic is mean. Yes. What else? What else? What is your personal experience with the inner critic? Let me know. So, in my personal life, I have found that my critic is indeed, like Susie says, incredibly mean, incredibly unkind, and incredibly destructive, right? And when I trace back a lot, good morning, Amy, your inner critic needs to be shut up at times. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that today. Like, how do we relate with the inner critic? You know, are we mean to it back? Are we kind to it? Do we give it all the room in the world to hurt us and destroy it? Do we shut it down and tell it to shut the F up? Like, how do we relate to the critic? And this is going to be a big part of today's conversation. Good morning, Sue. And so I want to begin this conversation to talk about, like, what is the inner critic? Like, what do we know about the inner critic? So what we know about the inner critic is that it is a voice in our head that, for many of us at least, is constantly talking to us in a negative way. And today, I'm going to specifically focus on the inner critic, the way it criticizes us. I think soon, whether it's next week or another week, we're going to talk about the critic and the way it criticizes others. But today, I want you to really take the time for yourself and take a look at the way the inner critic relates to you. So, inner critic, what are some of the words that you have to describe the inner critic? For me, it's neglecting, shaming, belittling, paralyzing, anxiety producing. You know, some of its key terms are never enough, or too much, or too little, right? Oh, Katie, I'm so glad that you are live too. What are some of the words that your critic says to you? You will never succeed. You will never be loved. You are, with your body, right? You are fat. You are ugly. You are disgusting. What are some of the ways the critic gets you? And the thing about the critic that's really fascinating that I have found over the years of working with it is that it can be really loud and really kind of run our lives. But also, for those of us who have done a lot of work, the critic starts going underground. And it's like, it's not quite so obvious it starts saying things like, you aren't good enough, you're never going to succeed, but doesn't do it quite as stridently as when we don't know how to work with it, when we haven't started engaging with it. So for those of you who've been doing a lot of work for a long time, you might not notice a critic that is quite as loud, but if you start noticing that you don't seem to feel so good, you have anxiety, you feel slightly depressed, like you keep wanting to grow and expand, and in my language, go to a higher feel-good level, feel more good in your life, and something keeps stopping you, that's the critic stopping you too. You will fail, says Kathy, you will be rejected. Amy says fat, ugly, not enough, too much. My inner critic is running off fears. Yes, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Like, where does the inner critic come from? So the consequences, right, we're taking a look at them. They're pretty brutal, the consequences of a voice, right? So the consequences are that we have anxiety, depression, hopelessness, helplessness. We're often paralyzed in our lives, and one of the things about the critic is you will never do enough to satisfy it. Have you noticed that? The critic maintains its life force by never being satisfied. So let's say you lose the 5 pounds. Let's say you get the job promotion. Let's say you get the perfect partner. Well, guess what? The critic will be like, maybe for a second say, good job, maybe. But then it's going to have a new demand for you, a new request, a new ideal that you are going to have to strive for, so that once again, it can have all the room that it wants in your life. So just take a moment to really acknowledge the cost that the critic's voice has cost you, how it has impacted you. Like, we are here as human beings to live heaven on earth, right? Like, that is what I strive for. And heaven on earth for me isn't this Pollyannish thing. It's actually a place of being really grounded and feeling good in my skin and feeling love and peace and joy. And when my critic runs the show, it's impossible for me to feel heaven on earth. It actually often feels like hell on earth. Do you guys resonate with that? And so where are the places in you that the critic has devastated you, has had you feel not good enough, right? Some of the examples I saw is towards the body, towards your career. You'll never succeed. You're not as good as your colleague. In your relationships, nobody loves you. If people really knew you, this is a good one. Do you guys know this one? If people really knew you, they wouldn't stay with you. They would leave you. Who has that? And so you spend your life, the critic spends your life always trying to make you feel, be better, be more perfect. Because if only you were more perfect, then you'll be okay, right? That's what the critic tells you. And so let's take a look at so what do? We have this seeming enemy in our heads, right? That's what it feels like, an enemy. So what do we do with this enemy? Well, my absolute life-changing, revolutionary, radical understanding that I received a few years ago was this: the critic is actually one of your greatest allies. So I'm going to repeat that. Your critic is one of your greatest allies. So let me share the science behind that. We are wired evolutionarily to be safe, right? To belong, to be loved. Because as human beings, we can't, especially hundreds of thousands of years ago, we can't live life disconnected, separated from others, right? From this planet. We need to be in community, especially when we were caveman and cave women, right? Living alone was a surefire danger experience. And so we have a part of our brain that is always on the lookout to see, are you safe? Are you loved? Do you belong? So that part of our brain is on. And then you grow up and you have parents and teachers and culture that then tells you the rules of how you're going to be safe, meaning how you're going to be lovable enough, how you're going to belong, how you're going to succeed. And depending on what you grow up with, right, those of us who have a very strong inner critic, it is highly likely, and let me know if that's not true for you, it is highly likely that you had parents and authority figures who were critical of you and who taught you how to be lovable by criticizing and shaming you. Is that true for you? So for me, I grew up that if I didn't clean my room, if I wasn't kind, if I wasn't thin enough, that was my grandmother, if I wasn't always generous, if I wasn't always thoughtful, if I didn't make sure not to be too emotional, that I would be loved. That's the way my caregiver loved me. And when I was disorderly, when I put on weight, when I thought of my own needs instead of hers, when I had tears or anger, I was punished, right? I was punished. And then I did dance, and then I went to an all-girl boarding school, and that continued, right? Succeeding, getting into the right college, and the being thin enough. Can you imagine that in an all-girls school? And so I learned, right? We implicitly learn these rules about how to be safe, how to belong, how to be loved, that this voice that we call the critic learns so beautifully for us. Oh, if you gain a pound, you're going to lose being loved. People are going to not accept you anymore. Oh, if you don't succeed at work, people will feel disdain for you. Whatever you learned, if you are not perfect, this is dangerous. You will not be loved. And literally in that limbic brain, in that survival brain or fight or flight brain, whatever we can call it, it is experienced as dangerous. Us doing things that lead us away from love, belonging, is dangerous. So guess what the limbic brain does when something is dangerous, right? The limbic brain is meant to be on the lookout all the time, right? If you think about being a cave woman or caveman and you go outside and you see tracks, bear tracks, well, your limbic brain is going to be like, danger, 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 right? So the limbic brain, through the amygdala, is always tracking for danger, always tracking for danger. That's its job. It's like a supercomputer. It's great if indeed you're out in nature camping and you hear rustling leaves, and that could be a mountain lion. It's really freaking great. But the problem is, it behaves the same way, this amygdala, if you're doing anything in the modern world to take you away, to make you step away from being loved, to belong. So you gain a pound, heart rate goes up. Danger, 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 danger. Do you guys know about that? Do you guys know about getting on the scale or putting some clothes on? And you realize you've gained weight. What do you guys notice that you feel? Like, think about it. Start noticing that this incredible voice is, once it sees that you are doing something to possibly make you step away from being loved, it sends warning bells. Danger, 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 danger. And then it uses its voice to try to make sure you're going to change your behavior. That's the critic's voice. It is desperately trying to change your behavior and make you do the things that make you feel safe and loved. So what if you were to start seeing the critic that way, as a fierce protector that has misunderstood how to be loved, how to make sure that you're safe? What if you started seeing your critic as your greatest ally that is just exaggerating, that has learned from childhood how to be loved, but now that's not true anymore? There are all kinds of ways for us to be loved, and body weight or external success, they make us be loved for just a minute. They make us feel a sense of belonging, a sense of being good enough for just a minute. And so when you start seeing the critic as your greatest, fiercest protector, then how does that change things? And this protector is on 24/7, as though you were a caveman or woman, always tracking, am I safe? Am I safe? Are there intruders coming into the cave? What if I go outside and I get attacked by a bear, a mountain lion, a snake, whatever, wherever part of the world you were as a cave person? It is tracking for you 24/7 and making sure through force, through aggression, through the best ways it knows how, to warn you that you are doing something wrong and that you are moving away from safety. So how would it feel to see the critic like that? Brings a sense of curiosity about why we're getting danger signals. Right. Oh, interesting. Like every time I eat too much, or every time I get on the scale, or, when I'm about to do a live, the critic wants to come in. Why? Why does the critic? Well, you're not going to be good enough. Make sure that you look good enough. Make sure you're prepared enough. You're never going to do it. No, you're going to miss it. Why? Because my critic loves me so much, and it doesn't want me to fail. It doesn't want me to look like a fool in front of you guys. My critic wants to make sure that you all love me and that I am safe in that. But it exaggerates that, because I know, right? I know that whatever happens in this life, whether I mess it up completely, whether you disagree with me, whether you don't think I'm good enough, it's not going to make me collapse. I have a strong sense of self that does not need external validation to make me feel safe, right? I have found safety deeply inside of me. Now, the critic has pieces of itself that are actually great. So let's take a look at that in a moment. How do we work with this critic now that we know that it exaggerates the danger we're in, but it's constantly, fiercely protecting us? So let's do a meditation right now. I want to drop us in because I want you to have an experience of finding out what your critic wants for you, right? And what I've discovered is it wants me to feel peace, it wants me to feel love, and it wants me to feel joy. And it is constantly tracking the environment to make sure that what I am doing is going to lead me to feel more peace, more love, more joy. So let's take a look at that inside yourself. So go ahead and close your eyes. And bring your attention to your breath. And notice how you feel right now. You might already feel even different from when you first began, when you first came into this live. Maybe your critic is stronger. Maybe you feel relief. Maybe, like Mary was saying, you feel curiosity. Just notice how you feel. Let your body settle. Let your breath slow down. Let your shoulders drop, your jaw soften. And I want you to imagine in front of you a beautiful, roaring campfire. And this campfire emits this warm heat, not too hot, not too cold. And you walk towards it. And at the same time as you walk towards it, your inner critic is also invited to come and join you. So invite your inner critic, say, hey, you have lived with me for most of my life. I have listened to you. You have been a part of me for so long. And I have never really gotten curious about you and asked you about yourself. I have fought you. I have hated you. I have tried to shut you up, to reject you, to push you away. I have listened to you. I have followed your dictates. But I've never taken the time to actually find out what your deepest intentions are for me. So I'd love to hear you out. So let that inner critic join you at the campfire, and you might see it as one of your caregivers. You might see it as just a certain color, a certain shape. You might see it as a character from a movie, as an archetype. But this voice that's been living in your head for most of your life, if not all of it, is here now for you to dialogue with it at this campfire. And go ahead and ask it, what is your deepest intention for me? simple question. What is your deepest intention for me? And then give it a chance to answer. What is your deepest intention for me when you shame me, when you belittle me, when you tell me that I'm too much or too little? What message, what deeper message are you wanting me to get? If I listen to you, what do you imagine will happen to me if I really, really did what you wanted me to do? How do you imagine my life would be better? And listen. And for the sake of time, you can always go back and bring yourself back to this space. I want you to tell the critic the impact its way of guiding us has on you, not from a place of aggression, but you might be feeling it in your body now. When you yell at me, when you shame me, I feel. And just share the impact. And watch these two parts of you, the critic and the one who gets impacted by the critic. Both of them want peace and love and joy and belonging and safety. But the way the critic has done it isn't working. It creates the opposite of what it is both parts of you want to feel. So first, please acknowledge the critic for its deep, devoted desire to have you feel good. Thank it for its years of incessant service to you, for you. And watch what happens to the critic as you thank it. And then say clearly, and this isn't working. Your amazing attempts at trying to make me feel safe are creating the opposite. So are you open to finding new ways that are a win-win for both of us? And check out what the critic answers. I imagine the critic gets tired. I imagine that the critic does not want to live its life in hypervigilance. I imagine that if you and the critic chose ways of you feeling more safe, more love, more joy, without its constant tracking you, it would be a win-win for everyone. And so as we complete the meditation, maybe you want to hug your critic. Maybe the critic looks very different than when you first started. And say, let's look at other ways for me to access those states of being that are more effective, more successful than the ones we've been using up until now. Thank you for your service. And hug your critic. That feels good. Bring your attention back to your lungs, to your breath. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. I'd love to know, what did you discover? Hey, Alex. What did you discover? What did your critic tell you? Were there surprises? I felt the fierceness of my critic, and I felt just the grief. It's like the critic spent so many years, it's like stabbing me, right? Just trying to get me to do what it wanted me to do so that I could be safe, so that I could feel a sense of belonging. But I could feel in my energy field how many punctures of pain. So that's what I told the critic. So Katie says, when you hold me to such high standards, I feel like I have to scramble all the time. My critic said, I just want you to know that you are good enough. Oof. I'm really feeling this, guys. I don't know whether you're live or replay. Please, on the replay, also share what the experience was for you and let yourself feel. This isn't just a mental exercise. This is an embodied exercise of letting ourselves get the deepest intention of our critic, the deepest loving intention, and yet the cost of this loving intention. And then how? What do we do? My critic is sad. Say more about why your critic is sad, Susie. Kathy, my critic told me they were trying to protect me from feeling any pain. Right. Thank you. That's the danger, right, Kathy? The danger is feeling pained, feeling ostracized, feeling rejected, feeling abandoned. All the things that are the opposite of when we feel safe, which we belong, we are okay. I said, thank you, but this prevents me from feeling joy, love as well. I felt a sense of deja vu. That's interesting. My critic doesn't feel needed anymore. No, we are going, so let us move. What time is it? I always want to check the time. Oh yeah, I get to see it. Okay. So let's take a look. Like, how do we work with the critic? Let's see what Raven says. Another magical vision. They want me to experience love, right? To be the best me and to prove the negative wrong, but they admit to coming on too strong. We agreed to start fresh with a gentle approach and compassion because I am enough now. We held hands at the end and hugged to be rejoined. So for those of you who know this work and the language of this work, and for those of you who don't, I'll say it anyway. The critic works from the red zone, from the stress response, right? It thinks we're in danger. You put on an extra pound. You didn't get the promotion at work. Your partner is mad at you and just goes into the stress response, into the red zone, and then exaggerates how much in danger you are, right? So what do we want to do? We want to work with that voice from the green zone. So here's the how you work in the moment with your critic. You practice the 3 steps of the methodology. So step number 1, you have to be aware that your critic is speaking to you and is speaking to you in an outdated way. Let's call it outdated. Up until now, it thought it was doing a great job. So we stop. Voice, you are in the red zone. When you speak to me from that stress response, you only see what's wrong with me. That's the only thing it can see. And I need to stop because this is not the most effective way to change behavior. Then you do the second step. You slow down and breathe. And what the slowing down and breathe does is it shifts you from the limbic brain to the prefrontal cortex, to the part of us that has empathy, compassion, love, understanding, curiosity. So you shift yourself into the green zone. And then you get to decide what feel-good habit you want to take. You can take a feel-good habit where you say to your critics, I love you so much. You have been so loyal to me, and I want to hear you. So can you speak to me in a green zone way so that I can hear how I can create my most fabulous, expanded, joyous life? Oh, if I don't take care of my body, I'm not going to feel good. That's what you're really trying to say when you say you're fat and ugly. Oh, if you don't have work that's meaningful, where where I have a sense of purpose, that's why you're trying to tell me I have to be better and better and better and better. Oh, if I don't have some basic needs met of money, then my life is going to be so much harder. Like whatever it is your critic tells you. What is the green zone way of it telling you? What can you learn? As Raven was saying, in a more compassionate, gentler approach. So that's one way. You can dialogue with your critic. And Susie, this addresses its sadness. You can still use the critic. You can still use its wisdom. It's protective, fierce devotion to your happiness. You just want to hear it from the green zone, from its deepest, most beautiful, heart-based intention, not from its fear-based approach, right? When the critic is at its strongest, it's in the red zone, it is in fear. That's why it sounds so anxious. That's why it sounds so urgent. That's why it sounds so mean. It is scared that you are doing something to endanger yourself. When you bring the critic's voice into the green zone, then you get a chance to listen to what it wants for you that could be really, really helpful. Yeah, maybe I'm not going to have that extra ice cream or a glass of wine. Maybe I'm going to be more thoughtful before I make this purchase. Maybe when I'm talking to a friend or my partner or a colleague or my boss, I'm going to slow down and be really thoughtful. So this work, this methodology always is about transformation, transmutation. I don't ever teach rejecting anything. Because the moment we reject something, we're now using rejection to reject. We are using the critic against the critic. Guess what that does? That just doubles the intensity of the critic. We now have two critics fighting each other. No wonder we're so often at war with each other. Get that? We need to counteract the critic with love. We need to counteract the critic, re-educate the critic with curiosity, with empathy, with almost a parental lens. You know, the critic is like the 2-year-old who's throwing a tantrum at the supermarket. And some parents beat the kid up, yell at the kid, don't do that. Does that work? Well, now you kid being violent and then the parent being violent. Oh yeah, that teaches the kid a lot. Instead, be the loving but authoritative parent that says, sweetheart, no. Step number 1, stop. Okay, let's slow down and breathe. Step number 2. Step number 3. What is it that you're trying to tell me? Just like when you ask a toddler who's throwing a tantrum, they're trying to tell us something. We can ignore it, punish it, or we can listen. And the critic is always trying to tell you something. It is always trying to love you, to protect you. And then find a more effective way to do the thing that's going to make your life better. Not by shaming, not by belittling, not by judging, but with love and thoughtfulness and integrity. How does that sound? The critic is just a red zone manifestation of the part of you that wants you to be loved. Do you hear that? The critic is just a red zone manifestation, a stress response manifestation of the part of you that wants you to be loved, that knows that peace, love, and joy are your birthright. And the critic just tries so freaking hard to make you get to that peace and that love and that joy. And all you need to do is thank it and re-educate it from the green zone. Are you willing to work with the critic like that? Will you write, yes, I'm willing, whether you're live or replay? Yes, I'm willing to re-educate my critic. Yes, I'm willing to transform, transmute my critic. In my world, we don't hate anything as a way to get rid of it. Hate begets more hate. Rejection begets more rejection. We love darkness into light. We love darkness into light. Since I've been doing this work with my critic for a while now, we have made peace with each other, making peace with the critic. I love that. Yes, I will re-educate my critic. Yes, I'm willing to re-educate my critic. Yes, I am willing. Yes, I am willing. Yes, I'm willing to love and work with my critic. Can you imagine? Because the thing is, and let's see if it's next week another time, when we have an internal critic, guess what happens? It also is externally oriented. Like, if you have a really strong critic inside yourself, I promise you, it's going to show up in the external world as well. I don't like these people. Like, you can do against politics. You can do against your partner. You can do against your friends, people you feel competitive about, right? The critic is a red zone experience. And I think it's almost impossible. Tell me if I'm wrong, right? But to have an internal critic that's brutal and not to have it also be externally oriented. Now, some of us are more external critics and some of us are more internal critics. But it's the same energy. It's the same energy. And if you fight the critic, if you try to demolish the critic, to reject the critic, it's just going to get stronger because you're using critical energy against critical energy. Yes, we agreed to work together in a more productive way. I'm in, says Alana. Okay. 3 steps. 1, bring awareness to your critical voice and stop. In the red zone, that voice will never work. It is fear-based. It's going to hurt you. Slow down and breathe. Step number 2, start shifting your brain into the frontal cortex, where empathy, curiosity, love, compassion live. And step number 3, speak to your critic. What do you really need me to know from the green zone? What do you really need me to do from the green zone? I want to hear you. And then you get to decide whether you want to do the thing that voice tells you to do. You're a grown-up. You don't have to listen to all the voices in your head. You don't have to do what all the voices. Sometimes it'll be great. Yes, sweetheart, be kinder. Yeah, you might want to work a little bit harder because you love this job and you've been kind of slacking. So choose whether you're going to listen. All right, everyone. Thank you for being on this live. Thank you for coming on to the replay. And, my intention for these lives is really to help you start really getting that every aspect of our humanity is sacred, but sometimes, what's the word? Misunderstood, right? Misaligned. It has, every part of us always has beautiful intentions for us. But if it's coming from fear, the way it's going to manifest those intentions and act upon those intentions is going to be painful and dangerous. But when we come from love, when we bring those same voices that can be so destructive and we bring them into love, into the green zone realm, that changes everything. And that's when you realize every part of you is astounding, is sacred, is lovable. And it's your job, if you want it, your responsibility to take these parts of yourself, bring them into the green zone, and realize that they are God too. All right. See you next Thursday. Bye-bye.